Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you're having a good day today so far. Hope you had a good weekend. Mine was all right. I did, however, I had to buy another pair of headphones, and not like y'all actually really care, but I had to buy another pair of headphones because I was getting ready for work Saturday morning, and I don't know, I guess I didn't feel like I was rushing to get ready because I was ready to go and everything, and I was just sitting there waiting to leave, and then we leave, and then I get to work, everything's fine, and I'm going to get my headphone charger and my phone charger out of my purse, and it's not there. And I'm like, what did I do with it? And then I realized I didn't even pick it up. I left it at home. So I had one pair of headphones that only stay charged for about 1 hour, and then I have to go and plug it in. And those are specifically to be used when I'm trying to charge up my other ones, which charge up really quickly and they last a really long time. And I was like, I found another pair of headphones in my bag, and so I'm like, well, I'll just switch between these two, but they died so fast because they're both just wore out that it wasn't working, and I'm like, I gotta go get some headphones. So I ran over to CVS, got another pair of headphones of the ones that I had at home, so now I have two really good pairs of headphones, which is, I mean, I guess it's okay. Eventually I'm gonna need another set anyway, because I don't spend a whole lot of money on headphones because I'm very rough with my headphones because I just throw them in my bag and, you know, they mess up really easily. So I don't spend a lot of money. But my birthday's coming up. So anybody that knows me personally that's listening, if you want to get me a really good pair of headphones, I won't stop you. Anyway, so that's it. And it's been a really busy week. And hopefully Rosa will be back on Monday. Definitely Tuesday, I know that, but I'm hoping Monday. It's been so rough without her there. I'm totally exhausted. So I'll be glad when she comes back. And also, I bought a new flavor of Red Bull. They have a new one out for the summer, and it is strawberry apricot. And their other summer flavors I wasn't really fond of other than their watermelon. And I like their coconut too. But this one's actually pretty good. The dragon fruit one I didn't like. But this one's really good. Okay. Enough of that. I want to remind you guys to go and subscribe to the podcast and my YouTube channel. And start and follow me on social media. I've really been getting into using Twitter a lot more. I was more of a Facebook person, but it's dying out, and I'm not really interested in Facebook other than to promote the show. So if you would just go follow me on Twitter or Instagram, it'd be the best place to interact with me if you want to do that. And I've really been trying to build up my following on Twitter. It's really small because I don't really do Twitter that much. But I started doing it more. And in 2 days, I went from I think it was 92 followers to 128, which I know is very small, but the fact that I went that big, that I had that big of a jump in 2 days for someone who doesn't really mess around with Twitter that much, I was very proud of that. I started posting some very controversial tweets. Some of them may have gotten taken down because I didn't get any responses to some of them that I did, but at the end, I'm going to go over one of the tweets that I sent out yesterday, and we'll see if anybody interacted with it. I haven't checked. Anyway, let's read our daily promise. It says, "For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved it is the power of God." 1 Corinthians 1:18. "Thank you, Lord, that all the valued learning of this world is confounded, baffled, and eclipsed by the Christian revelation and the glorious triumphs of the cross." That's by Matthew Henry, wrote that. Okay, let's talk about this really quickly. Everybody knows about the Governor Whitmer kidnapping plot, right? Where the FBI infiltrated this group of guys, and they kind of they entrapped them into trying to kidnap Governor Whitmer. Well, 2 of those people were just acquitted, and 2 more got a mistrial over the kidnapping plot. This is from Louder with Crowder. by Joseph Gunderson. So, the entire world feels like it's going insane. Ukraine is still making headlines each day. Biden's half of a brain and a word vomit threatened to throw us into World War III. I've got hiccups, sorry. And Will Smith's slap at the behest of his repulsive wife is still rippling through time, spurring fingers to take to keyboards. If you forgot that a group of dudes in Michigan were on trial for allegedly planning to kidnap one of the preeminent murderers of elderly adults in American history, I forgive you. Now, I didn't forget that, but I didn't know that this was taking place yet either. They were on trial. As of yesterday, 2 of the men have been acquitted of all charges, while 2 others were granted a mistrial after the jury deadlocked. So, my question is, how can 2 be acquitted, but 2 get a mistrial if it's all the same? They should all be acquitted, right? Am I wrong in thinking that? The case was of such importance, though, not necessarily because a group of potheads cooked up the idea to kidnap a sitting governor, but because they were surrounded by FBI agents who supposedly gave them the idea and urged them along the entire time. The jury, or at least a good portion of the jury, felt that if the FBI is going to surround a group of guys with agents and then convince them to commit a crime or convince them to plan to commit a crime, maybe they aren't the crooks in this scenario. The FBI has been a bunch of crooks for years now, but there hasn't been a case like this that demonstrates so clearly the lack of faith in the organization. People just don't trust the government anymore, and they seriously don't trust the federal law enforcement officer who have, more or less, been playing Gestapo for the Biden administration since he took office. I trust FBI agents about as far as I can throw them, and I've never met an FBI agent, at least not to my knowledge, so I haven't been able to gauge just how far I can throw one. So, until such a point as I get to throw an FBI agent, I'm not going to trust them at all, and they deserve it, the lack of trust in being thrown. However, just as a lesson to the rest of you, if some cargo-shorted, sunglass-wearing weirdo with a Bluetooth starts talking about storming a building or blowing something up, assume he's a Fed and throw him for me. Yeah. If someone came up and started talking to me about that, I'm going to go turn them in myself. It blows my mind how people can so easily be coerced into planning to commit a crime. Because what if they weren't FBI agents and they were just regular people that convinced them to do it? I mean, then it really wouldn't have been entrapment. I don't see how anybody can so easily be convinced to do something so stupid, though. That's my problem. And I don't blame them. Obviously, you can't entrap somebody. You cannot do that as law enforcement. But on the other hand, I'm still questioning how smart these grown men are that they could have so easily been convinced to do something so stupid. That I don't get. But at least, 2 of them aren't going to jail, and I guess the other 2 will have another trial, I guess. So we'll see. Let's see. Let's talk about this Texas woman who was charged with murder for a self-induced abortion. Pro-choice activists hold protests demanding her immediate release. Well, see, here in Texas, we have laws against that. We don't allow people to kill babies like that. I know in Washington, D.C., apparently they allow it because it's happening right now as we speak. But this is written by Paul Sacca. Says, a Texas woman has been charged with murder after law enforcement said she carried out a self-induced abortion. Pro-choice activists have rallied around the woman and demanded her immediate release from jail. Lizelle Herrera, 26, was arrested on Thursday by the Starr County Sheriff's Office and charged with murder. A Starr County Sheriff's Office spokesperson told KBEO-TV Herrera was arrested after authorities learned she intentionally and knowingly caused the death of an individual by self-induced abortion. It was not clear how far along Herrera was in her pregnancy. Herrera remains in the custody of the Starr County Sheriff's Office with the bond set at $500,000. I really can't imagine what they are going through right now, family friend Romero Gonzalez told the New York Post. A handful of pro-choice activists gathered at the jail near the Texas-Mexico border to protest Herrera's arrest. Texas Public Radio reporter Pablo de la Rosa wrote on Twitter, protesters mobilized by Frontera Fund and South Texas for Reproductive Justice at Starr County Jail after Lizelle Herrera's arrest. The Frontera Fund is a self-described, quote, abortion fund for the Rio Grande Valley, end quote. They said, this arrest is inhumane. We are demanding the immediate release of Lizelle Herrera, declared Rocky Gonzalez, founder of the Frontera Fund. What is alleged is that she was in the hospital and had a miscarriage and divulged some information to hospital staff, who then reported her to the police. Melissa Ardona, co-founder of South Texans for Reproductive Justice, was also at the protest for Lizelle Herrera. I mean, they criminalized pregnancy, basically, and abortion access. No, they didn't criminalize pregnancy. They criminalized murdering your child after a heartbeat is detected, which is around 6 weeks. That's what they criminalized. No one is being penalized or considered a criminal just because they get pregnant. If you don't want to have a child, just don't have sex. I don't know how much clearer that can be. Just stop. Don't tell me it can't be done. It can be done. She said, referencing the Texas Heartbeat Act. And so we knew something like this was bound to happen eventually. Last May, Texas Governor Abbott signed into law the pro-life Texas Heartbeat Act that prohibits physicians from knowingly performing or inducing an abortion on a pregnant woman if the physician detected a fetal heartbeat of the unborn child or failed to perform a test to detect a fetal heartbeat. A report from February found that abortions fell by nearly 60% after the Texas Heartbeat Act went into effect. However, a study that was published in March said that abortions only fell by 10% because many female Texans went to other states to get abortions. According to a study, an average of 1,391 women traveled to one of 7 states for an abortion per month between September 2021 and the end of the year. October, November, December. So 3 months. And almost 1,400 women leave this state to go kill their kid. That's sad. That's really sad. And obviously we can't stop the women from going to another state to do it. That wasn't the point. The point was not to allow it to happen here. So to not allow for abortions to take place for people who can't afford to go to another state and do it. So at least 10% of the babies were saved, right? But if you stop having sex, you wouldn't have to go kill your baby. It doesn't make any sense. It's a lack of self-control. That's what it is. It's a lack of, that's all it is. It's just a lack of self-control. Learn to control yourself. Okay, speaking of abortion, let's talk about this. What happened in Washington, D.C. Now, Ted Cruz says that if the GOP wins the Senate, he is going to have hearings for the 5 aborted babies in D.C. and the abortion industry at large. Now, my question was this. Now, I understand that when Trump was in office, he was fighting against the Democrats at every turn. And so there were some things he could have gotten done that he wasn't able to get done because of dealing with that. However, we had the presidency, we had the Senate, and we had the House. Why was something not done about Planned Parenthood and abortions at large then? Why are we waiting until now to finally do something? This could have been done a long time ago. Pull Planned Parenthood's funding. That could have been done a long time ago. So I'm not sure why it didn't happen when we had control of everything. But maybe we'll do it this time. So from the Daily Wire, and this is by Ben, is that Zeiss? I don't know how you say his last name. Zeisloft, I hope. So Senator Ted Cruz vowed to hold hearings on behalf of the 5 babies whose bodies were recovered by pro-life activists from an abortion clinic. In a letter to Muriel Bowser, the Democratic mayor of Washington, D.C., Cruz wrote in his capacity as ranking member of the subcommittee on the Constitution that the D.C. Metropolitan Police is obliged to investigate the deaths of the babies. Quote, "It is a clear injustice that these children may have been murdered or aborted in violation of federal law and that the D.C. government entities that this Congress oversees are unwilling to investigate the circumstance and may instead destroy all evidence, he wrote. It appears that the Metropolitan Police Department has assumed the cause and nature of these children's deaths without an investigation. It has recently been brought to my attention that the D.C. government may incinerate the bodies of these 5 children without conducting an investigation, without performing any autopsies, and without affording these children a proper, respectable burial. As the Daily Wire has previously reported, pro-life activists recovered a box allegedly containing 110 pulverized first trimester children and 5 preemie-sized babies, which was about to be sent from Washington's Surgery Clinic to Curtis Bay Medical Waste Facility, a facility that continues to insist, ignoring photographs of its labeling on the box of aborted babies, that it does not burn fetal remains. In reaction to the situation, Cruz noted that if the Republican Party gains the Senate in the upcoming midterm elections, he will become chairman of the subcommittee on the Constitution. Accordingly, he plans to schedule hearings on likely violations, like those at issue with these 5 children, of the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act of 2003 and the Born Alive Infants Protection Act. Even more so, Cruz plans to schedule hearings on big abortion, namely on how this industry has directed faulty, one-sided research, promoted statements suggesting that women cannot be equal under the law or succeed in the workplace without the ability to kill their children in the womb, advertised dangerous abortion-on-demand pills that create grave risks of medical complications to both mother and child, and profited from the killing of millions of children. To be clear, the remains of these 5 children are critical evidence in the congressional oversight that the Subcommittee on the Constitution will conduct in the imminent future, he continued. Should the executive office of the mayor and the Metropolitan Police Department decide not to conduct timely autopsies, this letter provides notice that these remains should not be destroyed, incinerated, or discarded, but instead should be respectfully preserved so that Congress can conduct necessary and vital oversight. The Supreme Court is presently considering arguments for Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, which pertains to a Mississippi law that bans abortions after 15 weeks gestation. As the justices prepare to release their verdict, a growing number of lawmakers across the country are filing bills to abolish abortion rather than regulating it through heartbeat acts and cutoffs at various gestational ages. Texas State Rep. Brian Slayton, for example, introduced a bill that would ensure the right to life and equal protection of the laws to all unborn children from the moment of fertilization. In an interview last year, Slayton told the Daily Wire that, quote, to end the outright murder of innocent children, states must be willing to stand up and ban it with or without the court's permission, end quote. I agree. Just ban it. Just outlaw it. Don't let it happen. It's your state. You run your state the way you see fit. And this is why I hate the type of government that we become, where you have this huge federal government that thinks that it can trample all over states that have their own rights, their own constitutions, and the right to run their state the way they see fit. And if people don't like it, they can pick up and move somewhere else. I am tired of the majority having to conform to the minority to make them happy. You're the minority. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. We're not going to change for you. And I'm sick and tired of it. And I am not willing to see Texas turn blue. I'm not willing to see Texas have people come here and just kill their babies and never get in trouble for it. I'm ready to see all of that, these harsh lines drawn in the sand. No more abortions. Get them out. No more illegals coming to Texas. Stop it completely. Just start doing it. If it's got to go to court, it's got to go to court. But as Joe Biden says, going to court takes time. So by then, we'll be done anyway. So just do it anyway. We have rights as a state. I don't get it. Okay. Let's talk about this. Speaking of children, we know that people are freaking out over the bill in Florida, the one that they so cleverly, or not so cleverly, called the Don't Say Gay bill. And all these teachers that have really flipped the lids, that they can't talk to their kindergartners and first graders about sex or their own sex lives or whatever, that they're so freaked out about it. And obviously it's because they're child predators. Now, I got to be very careful about what I say if this is going to go up on YouTube, because I don't want to get taken down. But this is a report, and it's from the federal government, and that it's been warning about groomer teachers since the Obama administration. And I know Matt Walsh has been warning about this for a very long time, and nobody really listened or believed it. So, this is also from Louder with Crowder by Joseph Gunderson. It says, the left would have people believe that everyone drawing attention to groomer teachers is a tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy net. It doesn't matter that we have a litany of examples of groomer behavior. Brian Stelter says it's fake news, so it must be fake news, right? Wrong. We know there's a problem with grooming in schools because we have evidence of just that. We can all see the teaching materials being used, the goofballs on TikTok who relish in the opportunity to share their sexual proclivities with their students, and the strange opposition to bills that should be so anodyne as to be unnecessary. But we also have this report from the Government Accountability Office circa 2014, which was under Obama, just in case someone wanted to know. The Post-Millennial is drawing attention to the report after one of my favorite journalist activists, Christopher Rufo, posted it to Twitter. He posted, and it says, in 2014, the nonpartisan GAO published a 72-page report warning about child predators in public schools, recommending that administrators monitor teachers for grooming behaviors that could lead to sexual misconduct and sexual abuse. Yeah, I can't be the only one who thinks the government couldn't care less about this nowadays. People may not want to admit it, but the Biden administration has managed to be more radical than any administration in recent memory. Obama's admin might have had a slight issue with teachers grooming children for abuse, but under Biden, the government actually explicitly advocates for it. Is it still a conspiracy theory? Potato Stelter. Are we right-wingers just parroting some random QAnon thread we found on 4chan? No, this is a problem, and it's one that needs to be solved ASAP. There are people who seek to abuse our children. Many of them work in our public schools. Our government has known this for the better part of a decade. It's not in your imagination. And if we go to Twitter and look at this here, it says behaviors of perpetrators of child sexual abuse. While child sexual abuse, the act of forcing a child to engage in sexual activity with the perpetrator, is generally criminal in nature, perpetrators of such abuse typically exhibit other inappropriate and sometimes non-criminal behaviors. These behaviors of perpetrators may be displayed on a continuum and may include grooming, sexual misconduct, and child sexual abuse. So grooming behaviors, extra attention paid to a single student, gifts or favors to a student's family. And it said special attention to a student, like special tutoring or rides home. Sexual misconduct. Well, we know what those are. So, and actually, you can go on Twitter and find this, and there's actually, like, all the documents that are there if you want to get there. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I saw someone posted on Twitter yesterday, and they were speaking to the LGBT community, and they said that they better start standing up against this nonsense because they are quickly becoming the most hated group in the country. So I responded back and I said, they are not hated for their lifestyle choice. They are hated because they're coming for our children. You want to live that life? By all means, do whatever you want. I think it's wrong. I think it's sinful. I think you're a disgusting person to air that out to everybody about what you do in your own home. But if that's the way you want to live your life the way you want to. Leave my kids out of it. They are my children, given to me by God. They are not the government's. They are not the teachers. They are not somebody else's. They are mine. Leave my children alone. That's all we're saying. Leave our kids alone. You want to indoctrinate a child? Indoctrinate your own. I would consider that child abuse, and you probably shouldn't be allowed to have that child. But You have your own children if you want to corrupt them and misguide them and confuse them. Please don't go have your own children and do that. Please don't. But if they're your kids, then I guess you can say whatever you want to them. But when it comes to our kids, that we don't want you doing that kind of stuff and talking to them about certain things, just shut up. Is it that hard to not talk about sex in front of young children? Am I missing something? No, I'm not. You're child predators, every single one of you. You may not explicitly engage in sexual behaviors with children, but you are a predator of children nonetheless. Period. End of story. Okay. Next one. Okay, here's one. This really ticked me off when I read this. I'm telling you, we need to start getting serious about not re-electing certain Republicans. Especially any Republican. I think it would have been 3 or 4 Republicans that voted to confirm Ketanji Brown Jackson. They should never be re-elected to office. Get them out. Because someone made a perfect point yesterday on Twitter that, did you remember when the Afghan refugees came here, they brought their child brides with them? And then now a justice has been confirmed to the highest court that goes easy on... can I say pedophiles on YouTube? Probably not. That goes easy on them. Right? So, is that a coincidence? Probably not. But as far as that goes, and then this, here, where this Republican dare say this. This is from Blaze Media. Samuel Mangold Lynette. Ohio Senate candidate Mike Gibbons, and I don't know who he is, says middle-class Americans don't pay any kind of fair share of income taxes. Well, we pay the share that it's a percentage of our paychecks. We don't make billions of dollars. We make very, very little money, most of us, and it's a percentage of what we make, and it's a fair share. In fact, I would say it's too much. Being absolutely honest about it. I feel like, they say taxation is theft without representation. Because I don't feel represented in most of the time. I don't feel like the things that we prefer here as Texans is truly represented in our leaders, and they do what the constituents would prefer. I don't feel that way. Yet I'm still paying my taxes. Now, I understand there is no way that you could possibly not have somebody pay taxes. Otherwise, how are you going to take care of roads and, bridges, whatever else our tax money goes to? I would quit giving money to the public schools is one thing I would do. Start making people homeschool or go to a private school. But we can't afford to pay more taxes. But this is what this idiot wants to do. So, Mike Gibbons, who is currently the leading Republican Senate candidate from Ohio, finds himself in hot water for previously saying that the American middle class doesn't pay any kind of fair share of the country's income taxes. Gibbons, a millionaire investment banker turned politician, made the comments in a September episode of The Landscape podcast at a media event in 2021. Gibbons said the top 20% of earners in the United States pays 82% of federal income tax. And if you do the math, and 45 to 50% don't pay any income tax, you can see the middle class is not really paying any kind of fair share, depending on how you want to define it. Can we ask ourselves, why are 45 to 50% of Americans not paying taxes? Is it because we're giving government handouts to everybody? Stop giving them free money. Make them get a job. Then they could start paying some taxes. The Associated Press reported that Gibbons' comments could take on a new resonance after United States Senator Rick Scott of Florida, who leads the Senate Republicans' campaign apparatus, debuted a policy strategy that called to raise taxes on Americans who currently don't earn enough money to pay federal income taxes. The tax hike would increase taxes on millions of Americans. In the video where Gibbons makes this comment, The candidate is sitting in front of a campaign backdrop and condemns Democrats for spreading an absolutely false narrative suggesting that the middle class is getting screwed and the wealthy, the elite, are cheating everybody. Well, I would say he's a rhino and he's probably part of the elite. Gibbons suggested that the Democrats use this rhetoric because they need the middle class to win an election. He also went on to say that he doesn't mind the utilization of a progressive tax system structure, but went on to say that wealthy Americans already pay a lot in taxes. Gibbons' comments garnered considerable ire online. Steve Cortes, a former campaign advisor to President Donald Trump and Newsmax host, lambasted Gibbons as a, quote, gazillionaire who made a fortune doing business with the Chinese communist, end quote. That is all you need to know. That he's done business with Chinese communists, don't elect him. That's all you need to know. Nan Whaley, the former Democratic mayor of Dayton, who is currently running in Ohio's Democratic gubernatorial primary, said, quote, this is exactly why we need to elect more leaders from the middle class, end quote. I would agree. I would agree with that statement, but make sure they're conservatives. Riley Moore, the state treasurer of West Virginia, said, quote, Ohio, please don't elect this man. He will continue failed policies that have been destroying the middle class of this great country, end quote. A spokesperson for Gibbons' campaign told The Blaze that, quote, Mike Gibbons does not support tax increases on any Americans and never has. Mike is a businessman, not a career politician, and he understands economics and how to implement smart ideas and strategies that will benefit all Americans, the spokesperson continued. As a conservative, Mike has pledged that he will not raise taxes and will put forth pro-growth, America First policies. But he just said that he didn't mind the utilization of a progressive tax system structure. Meaning, no more taxes being put on the wealthy. Let's start making other Americans pay higher taxes because the top percentage of Americans are already paying so much. Yeah, you know why they pay so much? Because they make so much. If they weren't making this kind of money, they wouldn't be paying those kinds of taxes. That's kind of how it works. Okay. I have two more things I'm going to talk about. Just to let you know where we're at in the episode. I thought this was interesting. I don't really care about it, but it caught my attention. From Blaze Media, as well from Samuel Mangold Lynette. Ronald Reagan's attempted assassin, John Hinckley, announced his first live music performance. Now, when's the last time you heard the name John Hinckley, right? I was only a baby when Ronald Reagan was attempted to be killed. When he attempted to kill Ronald Reagan, that was a terrible sentence structure. Because I was born while he was in office in 1986. But I have heard the name John Hinckley because, I know who Ronald Reagan is. I've done study on that. Anyway, but when's the last time you heard it outside of you were just learning that that's who tried to kill Ronald Reagan? So it says, the man who attempted to assassinate Ronald Reagan in 1981 is starting a career as a professional musician. The would-be assassin turned songwriter announced on Twitter that he has scheduled a performance in New York City for this upcoming summer, the New York Post reported. The show was confirmed in an Instagram post by the venue. Tickets can be purchased online for $20 a piece. Scenic presents, a Brooklyn-based musical acts promotion company, also confirmed the show via Twitter. The company said, excited to announce the first show in NYC of John Hinckley 20 at Mark, I can't read that. I don't know what that is. New York. Market Hotel NYC. Okay. Featuring special guest July 8th. Hinckley said that he is very excited about his upcoming show. He looks like a creep. People generally appeared unfazed, if not outright enthusiastic, about Hinckley's announcement. Many people responded to him by asking for him to book shows in other cities across the country and ask whether they could purchase merchandise from the gunman turned guitarist. In 2021, Hinckley won a court battle that enabled him to proceed with publishing his music online and pursue a career as a songwriter. In December 2020, Hinckley created an account on YouTube to try and launch his music career. At the time of writing, his account has 26,200 subscribers and 37 videos. In one video, Hinckley announced his plans to launch an independent record label called Emporia Records. Last September, Hinckley was unconditionally released after reaching an agreement with federal prosecutors that would lift the current restrictions currently on him if he could remain mentally stable, the New York Post reported. After shooting Ronald Reagan, Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Of course he was. Hinckley, now 66 years old, is currently living alone after living in his mother's home in Williamsburg, Virginia, and is required to attend individual and group therapy sessions in addition to a slew of doctors having constant oversight over his psychiatric medication. He is federally barred from owning a firearm and is not legally permitted to contact Reagan's descendants or actress Jodie Foster, with whom Hinckley was obsessed at the time of the shooting. A violence risk assessment carried out by the Washington Department of Behavioral Health in 2020 found that Hinckley no longer posed a threat. A regional NBC affiliate in Washington, D.C. reported that in response to this, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute said, quote, "Contrary to the judge's decision, we believe John Hinckley is still a threat to others, and we strongly oppose his release. Our hope is that the Justice Department will file a motion with the court leading to a reversal of this decision," end quote. How long, look at this man, how long before you think he does something to somebody else after being released? I'm going to give it 4 months. No more than 4 months from now will we hear the name John Hinckley for trying to harm somebody. That's my bet. And I hope not. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope he's better and that he can live a perfectly healthy, normal life. I highly doubt that. I truly, truly do. I give it 4 months before we hear that name again, outside of his music. Okay, the last one I wanted to do, this is an opinion piece from the Daily Wire. How do gender transitions impact children? Here's what the science says, and this is by Miriam Grossman, MD. And the reason why I wanted to bring this one up and read it is because it's a really big thing right now, to mutilate children's bodies, give them hormone blockers and things like that, and it's really devastating. And this is on the young generation coming up, and it's an experiment because we've never done this before with children like this. And I think if the world is still here, I feel like it's not going to make it another 2 years before Jesus returns. But if we're still here 10 years from now, so we're talking in their early 20s, I think you're going to see the suicide rates skyrocket for that age range. Because I think that this is going to cause problems with these 12-year-olds, anywhere from 5 to 14, we'll say, when they get into their mid to late 20s, or anywhere in their 20-year range, early to late 20s, I think you're going to see suicides skyrocket big time for that age range. And I think you're going to look and you're going to see that it was from the same children who we did this to. Not we personally, but as a society allowed this to happen to them. President Joe Biden has advised parents that early surgeries, hormone treatments, and affirmations are crucial for the health of their gender-confused children. According to the president, these are some of the most powerful things a parent can do. As a child and adolescent psychiatrist who treats some of the families facing these issues, his statements are surprising and, due to their medical and societal implications, warrant thorough fact-checking. To clarify, affirmation means unquestioning acceptance of a child's chosen gender identity, be it the opposite sex, a combination of male and female, neither male nor female, or one of the multitude of other possibilities presented to children by the media, online, and at school. This means abandoning the use of a child's given name and the pronouns consistent with their biology and replacing them with the name and pronouns they've picked, permitting them the clothing and hairstyle of their choice, allowing girls to bind and boys to tuck, and facilitating their use of opposite-sex restrooms, participation in opposite-sex sports teams, and so on. Hormone treatment refers to both puberty-blocking agents, PBAs, which halt the critical process by which children mature into adults, and cross-sex hormones, which are given a few years after PBAs to chemically simulate the puberty of the opposite sex. Surgeries refer to bilateral mastectomies, the removal of ovaries and the uterus, and the construction of a faux penis in girls, and breast implants, the removal of the penis and testes, and the construction of a faux vagina in boys. In the U.S., mastectomies are performed on girls as young as 13, and minor boys are being castrated. There is also a surgery that removes all genitalia marked by surgeons to individuals who identify as neither male nor female or non-binary. Perhaps Joe Biden believes there is a strong evidence that these life-altering social and medical interventions lead to positive outcomes. If so, he couldn't be more mistaken. The severe lack of scientific knowledge of gender dysphoria is acknowledged by experts in the field. And remember, gender dysphoria is still listed as a mental illness in the DSM-5. It's still listed there as a mental illness. The American Psychological Association had stated, quote, "Because no approach to working with transgender and gender nonconforming children has been adequately, empirically validated, consensus does not exist regarding the best practice with pre-pubertal children. The lack of knowledge is even more pronounced for gender dysphoria with onset in adolescents who constitute a new unstudied cohort," end quote. Nope, we're still quoting. In 2020, the UK's National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, or NICE, did a systematic review of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and found evidence that the medication's potential benefits are very low certainty, end quote. Similarly, Dr. Stephen Levine, a pioneer in the study and treatment of sexuality and gender problems since 1974, and arguably the most highly credentialed and respected voice in the field, wrote in an expert affidavit, quote, "The knowledge base concerning the cause and treatment of gender dysphoria has low scientific quality." Professor Carl Hennigan, editor-in-chief of the British Medical Journal and director of the Center of Evidence-Based Medicine at Oxford, along with Professor Tom Jefferson, a clinical epidemiologist, completed an independent analysis of research on transgender medical interventions concerning puberty blockers. Professor Hennigan stated, quote, "The quality of evidence in this area is terrible. For these and other reasons, the science regarding the treatment of children and teens with gender dysphoria is far from settled, and there is no consensus whatsoever among doctors and therapists. The stakes are high. The consequences of hormones and surgeries include infertility, sexual dysfunction, osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, and for some, crippling emotional pain. Yet, the president is calling for early treatment. It's one of the most powerful things a parent can do," he says. Jazz Jennings' parents made sure their child was treated early for gender dysphoria. Jazz, the poster child for the transgender industry, started PBAs at the age of 11 and went on estrogen in high school. Before castration and the construction of a faux vagina at age 17, Jazz reported to surgeon Marcy Bowers that sexual sensations and orgasm were unknown experiences. Now 21, Jazz has gained 100 pounds and is, quote, "struggling severely with mental health issues," end quote. For the White House to state that early affirmation of children with gender issues is crucial is a dangerous falsehood, one that misleads parents and places children at risk for serious harm and lifelong suffering. Instead, parents must be aware of the following. Regarding children who develop gender dysphoria before puberty, the great majority, on average, about 80%, but ranging between 50 and 96%, depending on the study, become comfortable with their bodies. This improvement occurs if they go through normal puberty and is called desistance. There is no way to know if a particular child will desist, but Jazz could have been one. One clinician with expertise in the field explains, quote, Gender dysphoria in pre-adolescent children is a condition that ameliorates by itself in most cases if you are just patient, end quote. Changing names, pronouns, and presentations can decrease desistance. Puberty blockers are controversial and have a history of lawsuits. Their off-label use in healthy children is experimental, and they have serious adverse effects that are irreversible, such as osteoporosis and early menopause. There is no country in which PBAs are licensed for the treatment of gender dysphoria. Once on puberty blockers, desistance is very rare. Nearly all children placed on blockers go on to take opposite-sex hormones, which must be taken forever. Until very recently, gender dysphoria was a very rare diagnosis with a prevalence of 1 to 30,000 to 1 to 110,000 and a male to female ratio of 6 to 1. A massive explosion of gender dysphoria cases began in the past decade or so. A 2017 study noted a prevalence of self-reported transgender identity in children, adolescents, and adults ranging from 5 to 1,000 to 13 to 1,000. A 2021 study suggested that the rate of transgender identification among urban youth in the U.S. may be as high as 9 in 100. It is not definitively known what is causing so many young people to reject their biology. Indoctrination. That's what it is. Being confused on purpose. Taught that. Brainwashed into it. The new form of gender dysphoria develops during adolescence, predominantly in girls with no earlier discomfort with their sex. It appears suddenly and is therefore known as rapid onset gender dysphoria, or ROGD. The girl's discomfort with being female typically follows increased use of the internet and social media and is associated with the comorbid mental health disorders and neurodevelopmental disability. The social influence aspect of ROGD is striking, with one study showing that 86.7% of young people with ROGD had one or more friends who came out as transgender at the same time and or had an increase in their use of social media. The spreading of behaviors and beliefs amongst friends, especially between girls, is a well-documented phenomenon. Every adolescent goes through some degree of difficulty accepting the physical and emotional changes of puberty. That difficulty is magnified for children with emotional and neurodiverse conditions such as ADHD and autism spectrum disorder. They struggle with their changing bodies, nascent sexuality, individuation from parents, and acceptance by peers. Many are lonely. This was exacerbated during COVID lockdowns. These vulnerable kids search for relief, and they find it on the internet. Transgenderism is promoted by online activists as a solution to nearly every psychological problem. Youth are led to believe their social awkwardness, lack of friends, sadness, eating issues, discomfort with their bodies, all of it, is because they might be trans. Their gender does not align with the sex assigned to them at birth. Upon announcing a trans identity, a new name, and new pronouns, a child is welcomed by an enthusiastic community, both online and in real life, and showered with attention, praise, and, most importantly, acceptance. It's what he or she has always yearned for, to be admired and appreciated, to belong. The significance to an unhappy, anxious, socially awkward child of being embraced and celebrated by peers cannot be overestimated. Parents and clinicians caring for trans-identified young people must look at the secondary gain of adopting new identity. Recognizing that the nature of adolescence is to explore identity and that the brain, and therefore many cognitive processes related to identity and decision-making, is not fully developed until the mid-20s. Arkansas and Tennessee passed bills outlawing hormonal and surgical treatment for gender dysphoria in minors. Similar bills have been introduced in the state legislatures of Idaho, Utah, Missouri, and Alabama. President Biden calls these bills hateful, but they protect children who lack the capacity to grasp the long-term consequences and risk of life-altering medical interventions. Parents tempted to give the president's words credibility should also know that treating their child's distress with hormones and surgeries greatly reduces the size of their dating pool and their chance of marriage. Studies from different countries indicate more anxiety, depression, substance abuse, domestic violence, eating disorders, suicidal ideation, and suicide in the transgender. A 30-year study from Denmark showed shortened life expectancy and a high incidence of suicide. A Swedish study found that sex-reassigned transsexual persons, both male and female, had approximately a 3 times higher risk of all-cause mortality than non-transsexuals. Elevated causes of mortality included cancer, cardiovascular disease, and violent crime. A Dutch study over 5 decades showed an increased mortality risk in transgender people using hormone treatment. There is a risk of suicide in gender-questioning teens, but there's no evidence that transition lowers that risk. One study showed that following genital surgery, transgender patients were 4.9 times more likely to attempt suicide and 19.1 times more likely to have died from suicide after adjusting for the presence of psychiatric comorbidities. President Biden failed to mention the possibility that a gender-confused child who is automatically affirmed and given hormones and operations before he or she has a chance to grow up, experience the pleasure their healthy body can provide, or carefully consider parenthood may one day deeply regret the entire process. These people advising the president on this issue probably claim regret is rare, but it's not. This detransitioner site alone has 28,000 members. That site here it's from Reddit, r/dtrans, if you want to go check that out. One of the major complaints of people who regret their transition is directed at the medical professionals who immediately affirm their new identities without fully considering the possibility of other underlying emotional causes. Years later, these people realized they had serious mental health problems, and that led them to flee from their masculinity or femininity. If those problems had been addressed at the time, they claimed they would have not transitioned. It's deeply troubling that the president did not mention the role of psychotherapy in the treatment of gender-questioning children. Anyone who is following this topic knows that in contrast to U.S. practitioners who pressure parents to affirm and medicalize, several socially progressive and LGBT-friendly countries, following a systematic review of the literature, made dramatic U-turns in their treatment approach to minors. Finland and Sweden have banned hormones and surgeries for patients under 16 or 18 in regular clinical settings. England sharply curtailed medical treatment of minors. Holland examines each child closely and makes decisions on a case-by-case basis. France has urged a great caution. A position statement by psychiatrists in Australia and New Zealand does not specifically endorse affirmation. The preferred treatment in all those countries is now psychotherapy. What this means is that gender-questioning girl in Stockholm or Amsterdam will explore her struggles with a mental health professional, whereas the same girl in Boston or Seattle can access testosterone and mastectomies with ease, and within months she'll have a flat chest and a permanently lowered voice. Understand this. Other countries have applied the brakes on affirmation, hormones, and surgery, but our president has instructed parents to accelerate. But Biden's advice is scientifically baseless. Available data does not support the argument that any type of affirmation of transgender identity results in improved emotional health in the long term. To the contrary, there is evidence of serious harm. The White House is promoting nothing less than a reckless experiment on children. For this man-made catastrophe, young Americans and their families are paying and will continue to pay a terrible price. So I found the tweet that I put out. This is from Dr. Phil Kidd. He's a preacher and a pastor, and it's from a sermon called "This World is in Trouble." And I just want to read to you what I wrote. There are 4 catastrophic events that, if they took place today, could mean the destruction of our world. We are in a headlong course to hell without any brakes. It's not going to slow down, but get us there faster. Number 1. Wars and rumors of wars, and this goes beyond international fighting. People will be at war within themselves, spiritual war, within the family, civil wars, and this country is so divided more than ever before. Rich versus poor, black versus white, traditional lifestyle versus homosexuality, Democrat versus Republican, even international wars. Number 2. Wickedness in everyone's mind. A society of uncontrollable people. Our children are out of control. We are living in the most dangerous days this country has ever known. Number 3. Weather changes. Psalm 83:15, make them afraid with thy storm. This isn't global warming, it's the wrath of God bringing judgment to America. God is telling us that time is running out. And number 4, a great falling away from the church. The church has become worldly and is being ruled by the people. 2 Timothy 4:3 says, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they keep to themselves teachers having itching ears. Feeling good won't get you to heaven. We need good old-fashioned, leather-lung, fire-breathing preachers. Churches are compromising. But Christians, when the world is in turmoil and headed for destruction, Jesus said in John 16:33, these things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Luke 21:28 says, and when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. 1 Thessalonians 4:17, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. I encourage you to go to drphilkid.com and purchase this sermon, download it. This world is in trouble. It's very good. And I believe that wholeheartedly. Anyway, I'm going to leave this episode here. Don't forget, go to Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, subscribe to the podcast, head over to my YouTube channel, watch my videos. You can like and share them, leave me comments, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Then click the notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video. I would greatly appreciate that. And then go to my link tree and go to my social media. Please go follow me on Twitter and on Instagram so I can build those followings. That would be great. Anyway, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and God bless.